I will start with a question, and I will end my presentation with a question. My question at the beginning of my talk is, how does a fire in the belly becomes one's art and one's voice? Instead of talking in the abstract and in general terms, I will share my own history of how I became a painter, and I will share with you how my life informed my art and how my art enriches and deepens my life. I was born in Lebanon in a completely different culture with different values and different ways of looking at the same events in life. When I was 13 years old, I had a calling for a religious life. I thought I wanted to become a priest. Thank God I wasn't accepted into the monastery. I simply didn't fit. And it was around that time that I started drawing. I wanted to express something that I couldn't find the word to express. Questions and emotions and thoughts that couldn't find the true word to express what's happening in my head and in my heart. And that's why I started drawing. My early drawings had questions about God, about good and evil, about self, about spirit and flesh, about mind and heart, and the conflict that rages inside one of us. And I had questions about death and mortality. What it is to be human, what it is to be alive, who am I, and what my life is about. I lived in the war in Lebanon for 6 years before coming to the United States at the age of 19. During the war, people righteously killed and died in the name of God. Politicians have used religions as a weapon so people can fight each other because they are not attacking the other, they are defending their religion and their God. And for me, living the war in Lebanon has deeply impacted what I do in my art, even though I was physically very far from the war. So one of the things that happened is my art has become a meditation of deeply lived experiences that were not abstract thought in my head. I did see burnt bodies. We were 50 people living in a little room in a shelter, not knowing if we can see the morning. So the effect of the war was an undeniable source that really still nurtured my art in a very powerful way. People who reflected the horror of war in their art have become, for me, trailblazers. They were guides. They were people who were not afraid to show how horrific we can be to each other in their work. People who showed the tragedy that we righteously or wrongfully, we do that in a full blood and a full knowledge that we are righteous in what we are doing. And my early religious calling has become the foundation of my art. All religions, when they talk about spirituality, they talk about the meditative life and the active life. I can tell you, I live the meditative life in my art and the active life in my teaching and in my relationships. I have often referred to my paintings as active meditation. And when you are listening to the voices that are in your heart and in your mind, I found myself pulled in two opposing directions, one going inwardly and one going outwardly. And in that process, I have started to really understand the roots of the inner conflict inside of me. For me, art is introspection. And it is absolutely amazing for me that when I am creating my art, I'm not aware sometimes how autobiographical it is. When I'm looking inside to really see the two sides of me, the Lebanese side and the American side, and sometimes there is a cultural war between the values that I have learned in Lebanon and the values that I have discovered and lived in America. So it takes a lot of soul searching to really inspect my beliefs and my values and to re-evaluate my values, to quote Nietzsche. I have often referred to my paintings as active meditation, and because of that, I felt that there is a part of me that turned into ash and smoke as the energy and the fire in the belly has released its light and energy. I believe art is communication. I've never believed that art is not another form of communication. Since the very beginning, before I even came and studied art, I really wanted to say something in the work. And the question becomes, if my art is my voice, what is it that I want to create? And that is where the fire in the belly comes into full force to give energy, meaning, and value to the work. What do I mean by the fire in the energy? I often refer to it as the things that really you cannot get rid of. You find yourself obsessed thinking about it, feeling it, revising it, looking at it again and again to comprehend a little bit deeper the meaning of things, the meaning of life, the meaning of the things that I tried to express in my early drawings. My art is also extrospection. What happened because of my art and because I have studied many masterpieces, I wanted to go and see them in the flesh. And I had the chance and the fortune to go to many countries around the world, see the masterpieces that I loved, visit the museums that I learned about, and visit many archaeological sites all over the world. The differences of cultures, races, and religions made me see and seek what is common in all these different religions and traditions and cultures. It's very interesting to see how within diversity, I'm seeing always what is common. Within diversity, we really see the core of what it is to be human. I can honestly tell you, here at George Mason, we've been known as #1 in the country for many years in terms of diversity. And I have often referred to my students to look around and see each other. And I cannot tell you how many times I would tell my students that we are a little United Nations here. We have people literally from every corner of the world, as far as China and Korea, as far as South Africa, as far as Central and South America, as far as the Middle East, and of course from many states in the United States. And not only that, we have the Muslims, we have the Christians, we have the Jews, we have the atheists, and not only that. It's amazing that when I look at my student body, the gender issue, which has become a very hot political agenda, the gay, the straight, the lesbian, the they, and the non-conforming, the trans, what do they all have in common beyond the label? One of the things that I always talk to my students about is beware of labels. Politicians put labels so you can see the label and you don't see the human being. Just look around. You put a label on somebody, you feel very, very righteous in wiping them out. You put the label terrorist on a person who is fighting for their freedom, they become victims of our label. And when we have the power, when we have the media, when we have everything that we need to create a propaganda against a person or a population or a culture, we feel so self-righteous in declaring war and in destroying that person or that culture. One of the things that becomes very evident is art has the opposite role of politics. Where politics divide and conquer, art brings together and heal. Where there is division caused by politics, art finds the common denominator and the common humanity. One of my fundamental beliefs is we have more in common than we have differences. People like Frida Kahlo is an amazing example that I present about people who dove into the personal. And by doing so, she has extracted the universal. Her work have become icons of the human experience. I've always believed that the art are bridges between cultures and religions. And to be human is at its core a recognition of the humanity of the other. I cannot claim my humanity if I don't look at someone completely different from me and see the human beyond the skin color, beyond the religion, beyond the clothing, and beyond where they are in their path in this life. This is, for me, if I want to make a re-evaluation of my values, when I look at someone who's completely different, whether he is different because of my religion, whether it's my cultural upbringing, whether it's family values, whether it's all the chains that tell me this is wrong and this is right. If it goes against what I believe in, I have yet a trip to do to reach my full humanity. During the Great Wars, people like Kathy Kollwitz and people like Otto Dix, I will go back and forth. I want you to look at these images. Sometimes people say, oh, why are you doing paintings about war? Why can't you do a beautiful painting that hangs in somebody's house? And I refer to these two artists as two of my greatest foundation. I sometimes say, I'll give you $1 if you show me one happy painting in their work. Art is not about entertainment and distraction and evasion. And I can honestly tell you, after reflecting too much of what art is, I have found that the fire in the belly determines what the artist's voice becomes. So we have people like Otto Dix and Kathy Kollwitz facing the horror of humanity and the horror of war, holding a mirror to their times and to the horrific events that they have witnessed. Some other artists from the same period wanted to create something that is devoid of anxiety and pain and suffering. That is okay, because that is dictated by what moves them and the fire that is burning within them. So it is that fire that really makes art so rich and so diverse and so deep in what it has to offer to humanity. The fire in the belly dictates that some art becomes a mirror to face critical, timely issues, or a space for serenity and beauty, or a form of entertainment and diversion, or a byproduct of marketing and lucrative markets. Who of us doesn't know and cherish? If art meant the same thing for everybody, if art was the same thing and the fire in the belly was the same fire that moves everybody, it would be boring. The diversity of life would be taken away. The diversity and the richness and the wealth of being human would be taken away. That is why when you're looking at art, truly go beyond the image, go beyond the surface, and try to really understand what is it that created that work? What is the motivation? I've been a teacher for over 20 years here at George Mason, and maybe 15 years before I came here. I can tell you as honestly as I can that never teaching was a profession or a job. I often tell my students I am privileged to be contributing to your education and to make a difference in your education. Because teaching art does allow me to talk about life. There is no place, there is no line where life stops and art begins. They always inform each other, nurture each other, and support each other. So my question becomes, if I believe that art is a form of communication, what is it that I want to communicate? And what I want to communicate are questions that are very hard to answer, because the answer depends on the fire and the experience of each one of us. And it is amazing that the two pictures that I have up on your screen, I have showed them in many, many of my classes. And I cannot tell you the diversity of responses, sometimes 180 degrees opposite, how some of them see them as pro-democracy and pro-America, and some of them interpret the same symbols and the same metaphor as opposite meaning and opposite direction. When I teach painting and drawing. I teach visual literacy. I talk about techniques and styles. I talk about art history. I show them and make them become aware of the diversity of the work that already exists. And I challenge them to find the fire in their belly, to look inside as much as they look outside, and to informing their art of what it needs to become. And what it needs to become is to become their voice, dependent on the fire on their belly. I cannot tell them what to paint when they are in the advanced painting and drawing classes. Why? Because as soon as they have the technical skill and the visual literacy that they need, then the question becomes, what do you want to say with it? In the fall of 2017, I was on a Fulbright in India. I absolutely loved that experience because it really introduced me to religions and ways of life that I only read about in books. I discovered religions that I never knew existed, like Jainism. I absolutely loved going to the temples of each of the 5 main religions, the Hindu, the Buddhist, the Jainism, and Amristar, my God, the Sikh, thank you. And I found in each one of them the devotion and the interrelationship of art and life and belief and lifestyle so fused together. And I look at what's happening in India now and the division of flaming, the fire that has burned my country, the fire of religion, us against them, as opposed to us and them. So when I was a teacher in India in my Fulbright, it was a teaching and research Fulbright, which means I had to create my own work and I had to teach. I had 16 students studying for their Masters of Art Education and Art Appreciation. This teacher who came from America has come to them and asked them something that they never were asked. I told them, I want to help you to be art creators, not just art appreciators. And I want you to tell me what is important to you. We're going to create a body of work, but you're going to tell me what is the subject and the theme that you want to have your body of work about. 12 out of 16 students chose women's rights in India as the subject of their work. I didn't tell them that. The fire in their belly told them that. They wanted to create a work that is meaningful. They wanted to have a voice to talk about issues that are important to them. And at the end of the semester, we had an exhibit. I have curated the show. They hang their work. And the title of the show was Our Art, Our Voice. In closing, I want to ask you, if you have a voice, what is it that you want to talk about? If your art is your voice, what is important to you to communicate as something that is boiling in your heart, boiling in your being, and want to feel that you, the little nothing, can really affect change like the butterfly effect? I thank you.